Some 11 years ago, we took a look at the Xbox Live Arcade release of Trouble Witch's Neo. At the time, we really liked what it had to offer, and while the game had its merits and its quality was apparent, in spite of its rather questionable English voice acting, hoo boy, it never really stuck with me. It would lay dormant on my original Xbox 360's hard drive for over a decade. Trouble Witch's Neo would end up getting delisted from the Xbox marketplace later down the line, but a new version, Trouble Witch's Origin, would fill the gap it left behind, albeit with a different set of downloadable characters, most notable of which was none other than Cotton. But that's not where things ended. Flash forward to 2023 and here we are with yet another version of the game, and it could be the best one yet. In this episode of Bullet Heaven, we're taking a look at Trouble Witch's Final. But I mean, how many episode 1s can a single game have? Trouble Witch's Episode 1, The Daughters of Amalgam Final, is the latest, perchance final, iteration of the somewhat popular X-scrolling Q-'em-up that started out as a Dojin Windows PC title all the way back in 2007. In 2009, Trouble Witch's AC would see release in arcades on Taito Type X hardware, but would also be re-released for NESic Across Live in 2012. In 2011, SNK Playmore would revamp the whole game into Trouble Witch's Neo for Xbox Live Arcade. Featuring new graphics and even more characters in the form of DLC, this was also the first to see an official English release, but would again ultimately be delisted from the Xbox store. We took a look at it on Bullet Heaven all the way back in episode 52. The aforementioned Trouble Witch's Origin would pick up the baton in 2016 with a closer visual style to the original. It also had its own unique set of DLC characters. Of course, Trouble Witch's Final, as the name implies, is even further refined than any other version of the game, and it was released to the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 on July 6th, 2023. I've really been looking forward to talking about this for a while now, so let's take a closer look. Trouble Witches is a game that takes a somewhat typical Denmeku approach, but also adds some great features to benefit from the large amounts of bullets that you'll need to deal with in more than one way. How you do this can hinge greatly on the character chosen to take the game on with. Any one of the witches found in Trouble Witch's Final can be categorized as beginner, intermediate, or advanced with regards to their fire patterns, familiars, movement speeds, magic totals, and replenishment. Final includes all of the DLC characters from 2016's Origin, save for Cotton from the Taichi the Cotton series of shooters. I suspect that it's a licensing issue, especially given the meteoric re-rise of Cotton as a series in recent years. Anyway, beginner characters like Sinfi and Yoko are great for survival due to their long-duration magic circles and quick magic recovery paired with wider fire patterns and powerful familiars, especially the highly defensive Ponta that tags along with Sinfi. But plenty of choice exists for playstyles of any kind. More or less, the use of the magic circle is instrumental to the gameplay in Trouble Witches. This circle will appear where your witch's familiar is positioned at activation, and will stay in place so long as energy is available in the gauge found in your character's corner of the screen. While active, most enemy shots that find their way into it will be slowed or halted, allowing for many to be collected at a time. In general, this is useful as a defensive measure, especially when a ton of bullets are flying around the screen. While these shots are being held in place, killing the enemies that fired them will convert them into gold coins, which, with the coins dropped by the enemies you've taken out, can be collected and added to your gold total. While these can be manually collected, simply not firing will automatically draw any coins on screen into your chosen character. However, if the enemy that fired a held shot gets away and can't be destroyed, the held shots won't clear, will change to yellow and immediately home in on your current position. Thankfully, quickly deploying another circle will clear these yellow shots immediately, but will only result in lesser valued copper coins. Since the magic used to create these circles regenerates when none are in play, it's easy to have at least a little energy left to use in an absolute emergency. They can also be deployed very briefly for quick gold collection when enemies have already been taken care of, but their shots still remain. It's a flexible feature that's not only fun to use, but also fun to optimize. I found the magic circles pretty addictive from a shot collection and conversion standpoint, and collecting a huge amount of cash makes for a much easier time buying into the second main offensive capability the witches have: spell cards. Every now and again, a floating pumpkin shop will appear on screen, much like the one found in Magical Chase. Similarly to it and other games like Namco's Ordyne and Sega's Fantasy Zone, making contact with one of these floating shops will display a number of enhancements and spells that can be purchased with the gold collected on the outside. Like Fantasy Zone, these will get progressively more expensive with each one of the same type purchased over time. The pumpkin shop is typically run by the super shy Patheni, but every now and again, quite rarely in fact, her sister Pelu will appear, offering spell cards at a considerable discount. In all of the versions I've played of Trouble Witches in 11 years, I've only ever encountered her, twice. Only twice. In addition to spell cards, additional magical energy and even extra lives can be obtained here, and can really give you an edge when playing for a 1cc. Anyway, the spell cards are where the fun really begins. Activating one will give your witch a powerful offensive advantage, while also converting enemy shots into scoring medals as they're defeated. The spells you can find in the pumpkin shop range in speed and power, and even cards that were featured as DLC add-ons in Origin are here by default. Some of my favorites include the ultra-wide 7 stars, the devastating meteor, this Tassigen laser as I call it, which turned out to be way more accurate a name than I thought, and oh yes, the F-bomb? Oh buddy, you're about to get fucked. These are great for going up against bosses, especially since, while active, your witch can sustain a hit without dying at the cost of their effect. But the order in which they are obtained cannot be changed, so some strategy and a little skill are going to be needed to utilize them to their fullest throughout the game, especially when it comes to scoring, which I'll talk about soon. It felt to me that these cards were much better balanced with regards to availability and distribution through the game this time around too. While previous versions of Trouble Witches were good enough, at least to me, this time around I could almost count on exactly the same cards being available at certain points, allowing for a bit of a plan as a result. There are 6 stages in Trouble Witches, and even on the default comfortable difficulty, things can get pretty heated, starting with the difficulty spiked stage 4. And things might look really dicey when looking at the size of your character versus the amount of chaos on screen, but thankfully, as with a lot of other Danmaku shooters, only if a shot or enemy hits the small star-shaped hitbox on your witch will a life be lost. Of course, knowing how to maximize the use of magic circles and the various spell cards at your disposal, things are more than manageable for a 1cc, even on the higher exciting difficulty. Techniques learned also scale well from one difficulty to the next, thanks in part to how the final stages of one difficulty are fairly close in intensity to the first of the next. With several approachable difficulties aimed at a wide range of player skill, I'd say that there's something here for most players to have a really good time with, but beyond the typical arcade mode lies a number of additional challenges. There's an in-depth story mode that features a ton of exposition for every character in the game, giving players more insight into their motives and personalities. Similarly to Cotton, the story mode is a lot more extensive than most of the simple back and forths in these kinds of shooters. It even features a simple autosave allowing for breaks to be taken if needed. Valpurgis Night was a DLC mode for Trouble Witch's Origin that was included in Final by default. It ups the challenge considerably to the point that there are no lesser or greater difficulties associated with it. Valpurgis adds a ton of monetary and scoring opportunities throughout the run, which is ideal for masters of the nauseous difficulty setting from arcade and story. An additional boss attack mode was also added through a free update to the game, which has players take on endless loops of opposition. This complements the similarly set up endless mode, which too can last as long as you can. Like story mode, these modes even feature the ability to continue from where you left off if the need to step away arises. That's a very welcome feature, if I do say so myself. Finally, as with all of the other releases we've seen in the series since Neo, a newly enhanced version of the 4-3 Trouble Witches AC is also included here as well. It is based on the original AC release, but utilizes the most recent game engine, making it unique to the others we've seen. In short, there's a lot to play here, and as a fan of Trouble Witches, a much bigger one than I originally thought, that's always a good thing. But there is a catch to it all. It turns out Trouble Witches Neo was the only multiplayer version of the game. Like Origin, Final is single player only. High scores are always a worthwhile endeavor in a game such as a shmup, so to have as extensive an online leaderboard as Trouble Witches Final has is excellent. Placing high will depend on a few factors. Obviously, enemy destruction will play a large part in getting your points up, but star coins are going to be the biggest part of getting really big totals. Near constant use of spell cards are going to be key in getting huge points through these special medallions. As more are collected, they'll be tallied in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, maxing out at 2,500. When this maximum is reached, all star coins will be large, high-value ones that will shoot your scores up in no time at all. Care should obviously be taken though, as if you lose a life, your star counter will be reduced greatly. Figuring out when to use spell cards to maximize these coins can be pretty addictive, and I have to say it's super satisfying getting a steady jingle of bonus items going as hundreds of bullets are cleared off screen. But that's not all. A number of stage end bonuses will also be awarded, including a multiplied 100,000 points for each life heart you have in the stock. Collecting lives in the pumpkin shop and through score extents can make for a rather large bump in and of itself, but of course there's more. A gold bonus in which the stage's spoils are multiplied by 10 times, a star coin bonus made up of the number of collected star coins and a 100 times multiplier, and a significant no-miss bonus if the stage in question is cleared without a death can add up real quick. Some multipliers are also increased at game end. The higher the difficulty, the more bullets there will be, and the higher these numbers can go, but leaderboards for all difficulties keep these skill levels separate from each other nicely, giving anyone a solid chance at glory on the worldwide stage. And all of that's not even counting the Valpurgis mode's myriad additional scoring opportunities, 5,000 star coin maximum, and whatever the heck this nonsense is. What the what? An additional scoring element is also present in the boss attack mode as well. If you can position your witch in the middle of the spell cards distributed between bosses and hold your position without collecting them, large bonuses will be awarded in addition to collecting all of the cards in the set. These cards will populate whatever remaining slots are left in the stock. There is even a great caravan-style score attack mode. Given the addictive nature that the bullet cancelling and Trouble Witches already has, applying it to scoring high makes for an even more engaging time, and it has me putting way more effort into squeezing gigantic numbers out of every magic circle and spell card. As far as Trouble Witch's presentation goes, no version to date looks as good as Final does. While the witch and enemy sprites are largely just as they've been since their original introductions, the entire interface from the text to the characters and boss portraits have been overhauled with subtle visual adjustments to the line art, color, and placement, and frankly, it's much better for it. The witch sprites look great and sport a clean, often adorable design, especially the stupidly cute Synthie. Additional details like unique wands to each witch when navigating the pumpkin shop are nice touches. The bosses are also a big draw, but the regular enemies are kind of oddly generic, which is kind of ironic given the personality everywhere else. While some stages have always had neat 3D elements to them, some of which were added and enhanced in Neo, the stage visuals in Final have been completely overhauled with some great flourishes, awesome environmental effects, and trippy sequences in some parts. There are even cameo appearances from some bosses at certain points in the game, if you know where to look. There is a bit of an issue regarding hazard visibility in Stage 4 though. There are two sections in specific that are way too tight and way too busy, which can result in a super sneaky, easy death or two if you don't know what you're getting into. And what you're getting into is what I call the butt crack of safety. On the topic of all new visuals though, not only are there brand new title, mode select, and character select screens, they're also auto-localized depending on the region your account is primarily located. Well, to English anyway. You may have noticed that everything here is in English, but there's never been a Western release of this game. In fact, this footage is from a physical Japanese disc. Even before any updates were installed, the English language elements were immediately applied. Very good indeed. Meanwhile, on the sound front, the excellent soundtrack and decent sound effects at play is classic Trouble Witches. Of course, only the Japanese dialogue audio is present here, so if you're looking for the legendarily awkward English VO, well, that unfortunately died with the delisting of Trouble Witches Neo. Trouble Witches Final really came together to make something I think is pretty special, and it's weird that I wasn't as invested back in 2012, even though I scored it high in the Neo review all that time ago. So what are my final thoughts? Let's take a look. I've said it once and I'll say it again, Trouble Witches is definitely one of the most approachable bullet hell style games there is, and Trouble Witches Final is no exception. With myriad modes and a wide range of difficulties to accommodate players of any skill level, it controls superbly and offers addictive mechanics that are fun to push to the extreme, all with a great audiovisual presentation, and a fun factor that's tough to beat. And it's got me searching for, and collecting, the other versions out there for more. For now though, this is undoubtedly the best Trouble Witches experience there is. Are you guys ready? Cause I don't know if I am, but it's finally time to unbox my PlayStation 5 and spin up Yu Suzuki's Air Twister. From there though, where will I go? Well, I'm thinking of probably taking a look at some retro goodness again, maybe in the form of PC Engine, maybe in the form of Mega Drive. Whatever it is, I hope you'll like what ends up dropping. Until then, we'll see you all in the next episode.